deep discussions about what's going to happen. My my brother was like the one I told you. His name was Yitzchak Harsh. He belonged to the Beitar, and he was a revisionist. he wanted to go to Israel in 1937 on Aliyah Beit. You know what Aliyah Beit was. He already accumulated some money, because he did some work, and he made signs. He was very good, he was a real artist, better than me. And he made some money from that. Somebody needed a sign or something, whatever. And so he accumulated some money, and he wanted to go on Aliyah Beit to Israel. They already made a deposit. What happened is they used to go to the Mediterranean someplace, and from there they have these boats come over from Haifa, wherever they came, and they loaded them up, and they like cargo, and they brought them over to Israel, and this was it, And so my father found out about it. He was against.
We're going
to change the tape. We'll backtrack a second.
Yeah.
In 1936, my brother got enough money.
1937.
In 1937, my brother got enough money to go to Palestine.
Aliyah Beit, right?
Let's start again. Okay.
My brother, who was a revisionist, in the Beitar, Jabotinsky was his man, and he wanted to go on Aliyah Beit to Israel, and he already put together the money, and my older brother was in Warsaw at that time. He worked in Warsaw, my oldest brother, and he wired them the money. I don't know how he did it, but he sent them the money, and he gave a deposit there. How to deposit and made all the formalities to how to do it. So my father found out about it, and there was a uproar in the house, that he's going to do this and he can't do it and all that kind of stuff, and he didn't go, He was killed in Plaszow, by, they shot him in Plaszow. This is trying to say, when the Hasidim today, I'm not religious. I go to a temple once a year, maybe. Sometimes I don't. The Hasidim was so much against Israel before the war, I know from my experience, And now they are carrying on in Israel like they are the ones who discovered the country, They didn't, My brother and guys like him did the job, They gave their life for Israel, The Hasidim didn't,
Get back to Zelig just for a second. I'm sorry about your brother's. He was a good son. He listened to his father.
Listened to his father, and he didn't go. But I just want to say this.
Did your father? But we're going to get to your father in a minute. But did he ever? When was the last time you saw your father?
The last time I saw father was in 1942.
By the day of the liquidation.
Yeah.
Did your father ever express regret that he stopped his son from going?
No, I don't. No,
okay.
no, he didn't know.
Let's go back before the war broke out again. Were there any opportunities for, let's say, like soccer, sports?
Yeah, we played soccer, and we had like a team, the boys, and we made our own you know, to have a soccer ball, you know, you, we didn't have the money to just buy a ball. It wasn't that simple. We made a ball. We made out of. I still remember how we did that. You know, so we made these pieces out of pieces of leather we found, and all. We sewed it all together, and then we put in like a balloon inside. We pumped it up, you know, and we played, you know.
Who did you play?
We played different guys, you know, different, like a theme, you know.
Was there an opportunity, or was there games between Poles and Jews?
There was opportunity between Poles and Jews. Yeah, there was some on the larger scale, you know. Not if we played by ourselves. We played only with Jews, you know. We also played like over here baseball, and they call it palant. They call it in Polish, you know. And we played it by the school, you know. We hit the ball, we threw the ball, and we hit it, and something. So I don't remember exactly the game how it went, you know. But we only played with our own kids. We didn't play with the, you know.
I was reading in the Iska book, though, they described there was one section of town where there was a soccer field.
Yeah.
And on Sundays or one day a week there would be a Jewish team and a Polish team. And
there was a place in Jaush, it was called the Staviske. The Staviske was where there was like a big field where they played soccer, and they came from different towns, you know. This was like the Yankees here. You know, I mean, this was a regular team. You know, it wasn't just me. It was guys that they knew how to play. You know, and they played the different. They used to come from different towns. You know, and they used to play the Jewish team. You know, and we used to go watching them. You know, watching them.
Did you pay admission to see that game?
No admission. We just got there and we hung out there, you know, and you know, we got a spot where to watch it, and right. We also had in Joshes, we had a theater, you know, a theater that they had some. My cousin, who was, I think she is maybe in that book there. Her name was Manya Vdovisky. She actually survived the war, you know, and she was an actress in the theater. They had some place, I don't remember exactly the place. I remember they brought in once a movie to the town. I went to see it. I don't remember what it was, you know. It was a very primitive town, because most of the young people, I was too young. See, I was too young to make adventures. Like they used to go to different cities, you know, to the bigger cities where there was more excitement, and you know, and they got jobs, and they lived a different life. But they used to come home for Pesach, you know. Everybody came home. You know, everybody came home. The Jewishes, they had their parents there, and their uncles and aunts, and they used, you know, just to come to Jewishes, you know, for the holiday.
We might go back a little bit to Jewishes, but let's talk. You said, for example, in your grandfather's home, people get together and talk about the political situation. So you kind of got a sense, even at your age of 11, 12, that things weren't good out there. Tell me what sort of things you heard, and
we heard. As far as I can remember, first we heard about pogroms, you know.
You sit up straight with your back against the chair. Okay, good. Is that better?
We heard about pogroms, or we heard about different events that against the Jews, you know, either certain laws, or like what happens in the Sejm, they call it Sejm, the Senate there, you know. And like I remember when the beginning in the 30s was this ritual law that they didn't allow the Jews to to kill the animals a certain way. They said it's brutal, you know. Did you ever hear of that?
Yeah.
I think her name was a woman. Her name was Christopher or something. She was instrumental in stopping that, and they had to do it a certain way, and they did a lot of slaughtering in secret,
Right.
because they weren't allowed to do it,
Did you hear these conversations?
I heard it, yeah.
So you heard that the Polish CM was making laws against
the Jews, right? Yeah.
What other kind of actions did you hear?
We heard that. You see, this happened in 1935. I was on 35. I was like 11 or something, right? And 35, we had this Polish marshal Piłsudski. He was saved by a Jewish woman because I think the Bolsheviks were looking for him or something, and she saved him, or whatever. That's the story goes. He was very good to the Jews. Very good to the Jews. When he died in 1935. It was like the end of. The Jews felt that this is it. This is like, now we're going to get it. 1935. Until 1935, there was a lot of collaboration from the government with the Jewish people. It was a peaceful situation. In 1935, they took over all these anti-Semites took over, and things started going downhill, and I feel that Hitler, with his entourage, they knew exactly the situation in Eastern Europe. They knew what's happening in Poland, how the relationship is with the Jews and the Polish people, and he studied that. They didn't just do it on random. They knew that it's not good. He made all the concentration camps in Poland. All the crematoriums were in Poland. Auschwitz, Majdanek, Sobibor. He knew that he have no opposition in Eastern Europe. That's where he can accomplish the deed, what he wants. In Germany, there was not one crematorium in Germany. There were concentration camps. I was in Buchenwald and stuff like this. But no mass murder, not what happened in Poland. You see, he knew where to do it. And this, I contribute to the relationship we had with the Polish people. And he knew that he's going to get a lot of help from the Polish people, from the Ukrainians. Ukraine, from the.
So people started talking about Hitler, and did you ever hear? Did you have a radio in your home?
We had a radio. Yeah.
Did you ever hear speeches?
We had we had the radio. We had it wasn't too many radios. We happened to have a radio, because we needed batteries for a radio. It wasn't like here you plug it in, And they talked about then they started to I think was it 38 or 37, Germany sent all the Ostjuden back to Poland, you see, because Poland was no prosperity in Poland. So a lot of Jews went to Germany before the war, and they worked there, and they.
Your noise when it's touching the wire?
Sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Oh, I don't touch.
Just to sort of ignore this, just leave the wire.
They went to Germany for work, and while they were there, some of them stayed there, They liked it there because Germany was a very progressive country, and it was much better than Poland. Nobody bothered them. It was no anti-Semitism in Germany.
So then they were all expelled.
They were, because Poland was anti-Semitic, not in Germany. Until Hitler came, there was no. They probably were, but not on a scale like in Poland. You were civilized people. You can go to the street, and in Poland you couldn't go in the street. You got hit with a. I know I have a friend. Her father got hit with a metal, with a glove or something. Just like this. They just smashed his head in. So.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, I'm sorry for interrupting, we need you to sort of sit with your back against the
Okay,
wall.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so things were getting, you were getting signals that the world was changing.
Yeah.
And give me, let's take us to a month or so before the war's breaking out. What was the discussion? Was there a sense that it was going to happen?
We knew that because he was making all these demands, and actually, before Hitler invaded Poland, Poland invaded some place in Czechoslovakia, I think it's in Chechen is the name of the place, And I had a cousin there, that when the Poles came in there, they made a lot of trouble. The Polish soldiers know that they pulled everything out from there and they came to Jewishes. They were pretty well off. They had money, had some money. They had a hardware store there, a big hardware store, and they came to Jewishes. We knew that there's trouble brewing, trouble brewing, and with the demands. I mean, till going back, I can remember as far as the Civil War in Spain. When was it? 1936, and then the war in Abyssinia, Haile Selassie, Ethiopia. I remember all that stuff.
So let's get back to Zalishitz, because let's focus on when did things change? When did describe the outbreak of the war and what people were saying?
1939, September 1st, they invaded Poland. They took him very short. I think it was on a Friday. I remember the tanks and stuff rolled into Jewishes. I just want to bring you something back, and it's before the war, as I remember. There were no roads in Jewishes. Everything was in the summer. It was dry. You could drive. In the winter, it was good too because it was frozen. In the spring and fall, you couldn't go any place because it was all bloodless. You couldn't go to one town to the next. You couldn't go. But in 1938, they started building roads. You know why they built the roads? Because it was all arranged by the Germans, to build roads because they should be able to march wherever they want to go, because when if they wouldn't build the roads, Hitler wouldn't be able to come into our town because it was all bloodless. The tanks cannot go, and it was all espionage, and they had people in the government. They made sure that everything is going to be all right for them to come in, So the priorities was to build roads. They build roads from Jewishes to Skomiash, from Jewishes to Pinchov. Roads, So the Germans, they came in September 1st. It was beautiful. They came in on the roads, and that's it, this was the beginning. They came in, and actually in the very beginning, the Wehrmacht only came in. It was no. They didn't know about the SS, or they didn't. You know, after maybe a week or two, a couple weeks, then they started already to establish the. There was like a place where some commander was living there, and this was not the Wehrmacht anymore. It was one of the SS people, who put through certain commands, the laws to see what to do, and and.
Now, they never established a ghetto, but
No, it was no ghetto. It was no ghetto.
Were you allowed to leave the town?
We could leave the town. You think you had to have some kind of permission, And they, right from the beginning, when they came in, they established a Judenrat. You heard about the Judenrat? No. They did this all over. They did this not just in our town. A Judenrat is Juden means Jews, and a Rad is a council, a Jewish council. They made a Judenrat, and the Judenrat consisted of some people who were in the Kehille, before, there was some kind of a little macho there, yeah. And some new ones which were like not a very good character, we're not perfect, the Jews,
No.
And there were some low characters who thought that they can, they become all of a sudden they became, one was a Musa. You know what a Musa is? A Musa is a squealer, like he squeals on other people. All of a sudden he is in the Judenrat. It tells you who's going to take care of you, So the Judenrat was in charge of everything. They used to get the orders from the SS and what to do, and they used to in the beginning we had this in the market. They used to put out like what do you call it, like announcements, printed. And actually my brother used to do a lot of that work. He used to know how to write well and stuff, and used to in color and black and white, and they used to put it up in town, and mostly people come and to look at it, and certain laws, what you can do, what you cannot do, right from the beginning, Right from the beginning. And that Judenrat, right from the beginning, used to supply the Germans with people to work for. Right? Let's say we had in the beginning a big farm. It was owned by Jewish people, and outside the town was a big place. They had people working there, and they had Christians working for them, and then they threw them out, and some German, whatever it was, they took over. They had gardens there and everything.
How did your life change in your personal life?
My personal life didn't change that much, Didn't change that much, except you were afraid to go to see your friends. You maybe had to watch out where you're going, and
What were you afraid of?
Because you were not allowed to go. You're not allowed. You were not allowed to gather. You're not allowed to gather. And there was in the beginning was also a lot of the supply of food didn't come in. Like the farmers used to come into town and we used to have Tuesday and Friday used to be a market in Jewishes, you know, and people used to make clothes and used to make shoemakers, and then the farmers used to come in to Jewishes, and it was when you went to the market, the marketplace, they used to display their goods, you know, and they used to trade, you know. This completely stopped, you know, stopped, you know. Now you have to go out in the villages and to bring in food, you know.
What was your encounters with the Polish people like during the occupation? They were troubled, you said, before the occupation. What was the effect of the occupation?
During the occupation, there was very little connection with the Polish people. They knew that we are in trouble, and they didn't help us. They didn't, you know, they didn't. We had to. First of all, the police, the Polish police, were all anti-Jewish, you know, and they were now working for the Germans, you know. They were working. They were not just were not a police force that belonging to the city, you know. It was like they had to obey orders from there, and they were not too pleased with the Jews anyway, so they could do anything they want, you know. So
was there any opportunity? I mean, like, were there any, for example, the mayor of the town or the officials of the town, were they in a position to, or were they inclined to do anything on behalf of the Jews?
Not to my knowledge, they didn't do anything.
Was that before? Didn't you see like a marked change from before occupation with the local police?
Oh, okay. Well, you said they instituted a new police force. It wasn't the local police. It was a police force specially just to implement the Nazi orders. Was there, among the Jewish community, so they weren't able to rely on help from the outside, right. Did you see signs of people in the Jewish community extending aid to each other?
Yeah, we had first of all, the in Jewishes was an influx of people during the war. You know, they came in because many people in bigger cities thought that the small cities in the bigger cities they established ghettos and stuff like this, so they figured they're going to run to they had a few dollars, they ran to a smaller place. So Jewishes became very crowded, you know, very crowded. And we had during the war, we must have had about 10,000 people there or more, you know.
How many, usually you had how many?
Usually we had, I think 6,000 or 7,000 or 6,000.
You had about 3,000-4,000 refugees.
Refugees. They were not refugees, they were refugees, but they were...
Came back to Jewishes.
They came back to Jewishes, or they just came to Jewishes because they figured they...
Where did all these 3,000-4,000 people live?
They lived, they got the people who had no money, they rent them their house, and they lived someplace else. It wasn't very, very good, you know.
What was the shul used for during the war?
The shul wasn't touched, as I remember. The shul
Did they have services there?
They had services, but the Besmedrish, you know, was used for, they had a kitchen there, and it was used for poor people, because there was a lot of poverty already. Because the people, like, they couldn't get out from the town to deal with the goyim, you know, and stuff didn't come in like before the war, you know. So there was a shortage on everything, you know. So they established this kitchen in the Besmedrish. So the kitchen, and people, you could come in and you got a soup, you know. You got a soup. You know. I remember my brother used to work there. He was a volunteer, you know. He worked in the soup kitchen, you know.
So life was difficult. You had an influx of refugees. You couldn't move out of the town. The market was stopped. And basically, the schools
everything was stagnant. The school Nobody went to school. There was no school. No school.
No market.
No nothing.
Everything was, everybody was sort of locked in this zone
Yeah,
in town.
yeah.
What happened, you told me about 1942, just like, before Rosh Hashanah, what was happening?
Then, maybe I can still go a little more here.
Okay, go ahead, sure.
It was, there were, at that time already, were a lot of places, like I said, the United had to deliver people, to go to work, right? Like I went to work. I was like 15. I had to go to work, and I worked on the farms the whole day.
Wait 1 second. What time do you have to leave, by the way? What time do you have to leave?
He told me that 5:30.
You have to leave at 5:30. Okay, so we have an hour. Okay.
An hour. I can cancel it, and I can.
Okay. If you don't have to, we'll see.
We'll see what happens. Okay. If not, I can call him up and tell him that I'll be. Maybe I can meet him in the restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah. Over there.
So you're telling us that you at 15 were.
I was.
Let's start again. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, at 15, I had to work already. I had to go to work, and then there was one more thing I forgot to tell you. The mill was still working. You see, the mill was still working. I used to work in the mill a lot when I was a kid. I must have been like 9 years old. I worked already in the mill. I knew exactly how it works. They used to leave me there, and I knew what to do. I was a mechanic. The electricity stopped completely because the Germans came in. They needed some parts, so they dismantled the whole deal there. It was out of operation. The mill they couldn't dismantle because it was a water mill. It was a turbine and a water mill, that kind of stuff. So we couldn't. They closed the mill. We couldn't do anything, but we used to run it at middle of the night. We used to run it at night. We took chances. We took chances, and they used to use me, and my cousin, to run the mill. And they figured if they come in, they see a kid, they might not bother him. They didn't want to be there because so they figured a little kid, and they're not going to, if they come, they never came in. So
because you know how to run the mill and you were a young kid, they let you run the mill, figuring even though it was illegal now.
Right.
Whose flour and things were you processing?
With flour, you used to get some grains from someplace and used to grind them. Illegal.
You weren't allowed to do this.
No, and these some bakeries were still working to have capacity. They got some fear from the farmers, and they used to bring him in, and we used to grind it for them. You see, and so we got a little flour out of it. To see that kind of a deal it was. So this was going on. This was going on from 1939 to 1942. This was this constant struggle, how to survive, and how to do this. My oldest brother, he met this girl. He was about 30, maybe 32 or something like that. He met this girl, and she was from Novi Korchin. That's not far. And they fell in love, and they got married. During the war. The beginning of the war, and we couldn't go to the wedding even because you couldn't travel from Jalshis to Novi Korchin. You couldn't go, because you're afraid to go.
There was a train in Jalshis, right?
Was a train, yeah.
Koleka. Where did that train connect to?
The Koleka connected to Skazimierz, and it went to Pinchov. This was the whole thing, the Koleka. didn't go far. It was a smaller tracks. It wasn't a large. It wasn't a regular tracks. You know. He married this girl, you know, and it seems that they had some. Her father was pretty well off. He was a very he was a wealthy man in town, you know, in Zelig, you know. I forgot her name. I forgot their last name. And I never saw her. I never saw my sister-in-law, you know. And he spent some time there, and somehow he managed to go there, you know, with a bicycle or something. I don't know how he got there, you know. Actually, my brother, my oldest brother, worked in Warsaw since he was 17 years old. He went to Warsaw, you know. He was in the Polish army, you know. I remember him when he came home as a uniform, and we took a picture together, you know. I don't have the picture. And he came home, and then then he went back to Warsaw, and he worked in Warsaw till the Germans invaded